Regular meeting of the South Haven Planning Commission for Thursday, May 9th, 2024 will come to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Clark Gruber.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here?
Eddie Polk.
Here.
Michael Neese.
Here.
Amy Nichols.
Here.
Mary Hosley.
Here.
Janice Varney.
Here.
Bob Sherman.
Here.
Tim Stegman.
We do have a quorum. The next item on the agenda here is approval of the agenda. I will call to your attention that Mr. Greg Wycamp, who is making the presentation under item number 9, has requested that we move him further up on the agenda since he has a later appointment this evening. I don't know what a later appointment this late in the evening would be, and I'm not going to ask. I would suggest, if it be your wishes, that we move him forward, that we put him in after item number 4.
I guess I would make a motion to approve the agenda amended with moving item 9 to item 4A.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to move item number 9 to 4A. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. The agenda is approved. The next item is approval of minutes for regular meeting on Thursday, March 7th, and 2 workshops, one on Thursday, March 7th, and one on Thursday, April 11th. A motion to approve or suggestions for change?
I move to approve the meeting minutes for March 7th for the regular meeting, March 7th for the workshop, and March 11th for the workshop. Support.
Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Citizens in the audience may address the Planning Commission regarding items on the agenda for which there is no scheduled public hearing. That would be now item 4A, item 5, item 6, item 7. Is there anyone in the public who would care to speak? Hearing none, we will move to item number 4A, which is the Shoreline Protection Study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today we have Greg Wycamp with us from Edgewater Resources to present a study that they recently completed for the city. As you all may recall, during the fall of 2022, staff submitted an application to the State Water Infrastructure Grant Program to conduct a shoreline protection study. This project was selected for funding in 2023, and the team at Edgewater has been working diligently behind the scenes, if you will, to complete the work. The purpose of the study, which was in your agenda packet for this evening, is to guide the preservation of public trust property and the responsible protection and development of private property along the shoreline. And at this point, I will turn it over to Greg, who has a presentation. And when he's finished, we should have some time for a few questions and a little bit of discussion on next steps.
And I am going to actually add in one of my team members who worked on this. She's a coastal engineer. So I'm going to call her and have her on the phone as well. So thank you. Thanks for accommodating my schedule. I appreciate it. I do have a hockey engagement later tonight, so I appreciate it. Thank you. So yes, I'm Greg Wycamp with Edgewater Resources. We have been very fortunate to have worked with the City of South Haven on many projects over the last 10, 12 years. And we focus specifically on shoreline projects like this. As everyone is aware, typically when we had the very high waters a few years ago, there's a tremendous amount of activity in armoring our shorelines. And as most of you also know, that when we armor our shorelines, we often actually create more damage long-term while we're trying to preserve property in the near term. And so one of the more innovative strategies that is out there is planning and zoning practices that get ahead of the issue, so that you don't find yourself, you're not likely to encounter any issues in the next few years. We're at long-term average for our water levels right now. It feels low. I will tell you it's actually long-term average right on the money. So it can go about 3 feet lower than this, and it can go about 3 feet higher than this. And we've seen both of those. We saw 3 feet lower in 2013 and 3 feet higher just a few years ago, as many of you remember. So the strategy here is to give your planning commission and you some guidance and everybody predictability in your community to know that, hey, if we want to do a certain thing, and how will we be able to protect our home on the shoreline, and is it the right thing to do? And one of the biggest issues and why this is critically important is because what one homeowner does has an immediate effect on their neighbors, and that's critically important. And that's why it is a matter for your consideration, not just my opinion that we should do something different. No, we want to be able to make sure that we don't cause a situation that causes damage to someone else. And a great example of that was down in St. Joseph. I can show you that if you'd like to see it sometime. A gentleman decided to build his house way out on the beach at record low water time. And it's always funny when you stand there on the beach and you look at these houses that have been here for 100 years and they're all way up there. And then this guy's got his house way over here, and you can hear him, honey, this is going to be great. And the water comes up, and the waves are hitting his house, and he's calling Eagle saying, I want to build all this armoring and protect my house. And he had to move the house because you can't do that. So what will happen if you put in an armor stone revetment, it will cause damage. It will cause erosion on the neighboring property, and we call it sort of a cascade. Then that neighbor has to armor, and then the next neighbor has to armor, and so on and so forth. And that's not a good approach. So what we've focused on here, if we can jump to the next slide, is looking at your entire shoreline and saying, how do we address this situation? How do we make sure that we're protecting all the existing property that needs protecting? And how do we prevent somebody from building something that's going to cause the need to go out and do extra armoring, and that's going to cause damage to everyone else? So we looked at your entire shoreline north to south. You're all familiar with the fact that you've got very different characteristics all along. We have 6 different zones that we'll talk about individually, and we have recommendations for each of those individually. So if we jump to the next slide, please. We assessed all the shorelines. We flew it with drones. We went out there. We did surveys. We did all kinds of work to look at everything. Clearly, towards the south, we can't walk it, which is the public trust, which is one of the big issues for Eagle, is, as everyone knows, if your feet are wet, you're in the public trust. There's a thing called the ordinary high water mark, which everything below that is in the public trust. And one of the things that's critically important for Eagle is that public trust is protected. And you can see in these photos here, the public trust is not accessible in these areas. And we're not going to change that. It's already there. But what we want to do is make sure we don't lose any more. So we're looking at a balance of protecting private interests, certainly protecting existing private property, and then preserving that public trust. So we want to give you a tool so that everybody who comes to you in the future can say, this is collectively how we want to approach it, and so forth. If we go to the next slide. So we spoke about having 6 different zones. Zone 1 at the top, area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we'll go through each of those individually. So next slide, please. So area 1, the northernmost area, this is the best area. As a Spruce Oceans coastal engineering firm, if I'm buying a house on the lake, I want to buy up in area 1 because it has a nice wide sandy beach. There are no existing shoreline protection structures up there right now because they're not necessary. And it's just sort of the natural process of the way our lakes work is that you have what we call littoral drift, which is sand that moves through the lake north to south. So when you stand on a beach, most of us think that this beach is the same beach that was here yesterday. That's actually not true. There's a river of sand that moves north to south, and that's called littoral drift. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get to the piers and why do we have more sand on the north side of the piers and less sand on the south side of the piers. So there are no existing shore protection areas up there characterized by dune grass and vegetation, and there's one public beach there. This is what everybody would like all of the shoreline to look like if we could. Next area, please. So there's some photos, and you can see it, big wide beaches, homes, and stair structures up there. There's actually a little dune in front, and those homes are very well protected. They don't need any type of additional supplemental armoring. And you can see some different areas here. Some, that distance ranges from 35 to 140 feet. Very well protected. So next slide, please. Area 2 gets a little bit further south. The sand starts to get a little bit narrower. Again, very good. 3 public beaches in there. There are a few shoreline protection structures in there. They start to crop up in this area because of the way the dunes work, in particular some of the condominium complexes, and we'll talk about that again in just a moment. And so let's jump to the next slide. Some pictures there. So we do have particularly these large walls at these condo complexes. They're there. they're gonna stay. We're not suggesting anybody take anything out, just to calm everybody down on that if there's a concern. But it starts to get a little bit closer because, not because that the beach characteristics change, but because the development pattern was a little bit closer in this area as it relates to that shoreline. Next slide, please. Yeah, so next slide again. So Area 3, this is where we actually have the widest beach, but it's also the shallowest and the lowest. And why do we have all those conditions? Because those piers are interrupting that littoral drift pattern. And that's why if you look on Google Earth at every single set of piers all the way up and down the shoreline, you always see accretion on the north side. So more sand, there's a big bubble of beach on the north side and a sand-starved area on the south side. And historically, the Corps of Engineers used to do a lot of beach nourishment, and they would take sand from the north side and move it to the south side to what we call re-nourish the beach and re-nourish the littoral drift pattern. The Corps, Congress decided to stop funding those activities in the 90s, and here we are. So every time we have a situation like this, we've been working with New Buffalo, their whole shoreline in this. The Corps is absolutely crystal clear aware that their structures are creating these issues. That is not a secret, and every time somebody gets involved in a lawsuit with the Corps, they think they found the smoking gun, and the Corps is like, yeah. Every time we stick a structure out there, it blocks this, and that's one of the trade-offs with these structures. What we have, let's jump to the next slide, please. We have a very low wide beach, as you know. It's lower, and we'll talk about the physics of how waves move up and down and how we set some of these boundaries. Next slide, please. Very, very wide, but also very low. Next slide, please. And so as we jump to the south side of the pier, Area 4, you have, of course, your water plant, which is critical public infrastructure. Again, it's quite low, and there's actually very little armoring of any kind or what we call shoreline protection structures. There is, historically, when we did the Monroe Bluff Beach study, must have been 6 or 7 years ago, we had a lot more sand in this area back before high water. It was really telling. We had public meetings when we were doing the Monroe Bluff study. We had many public meetings, and one of the conversations with the community was a lot of support for allowing that beach to move naturally because nobody wanted to see structures in these areas. And we're in a situation now where that sand at high water, we lost a lot, but it has stabilized, and it is still fine. So we don't have structures in here, but we do need to, of course, be ready to accommodate protection of the critical infrastructure. It's also quite low. So we have a much wider beach there. So next couple of pictures. So we have that area, and then you can see at high water we had to put what we call HESCO barriers out there. So there are temporary means that we did a lot of during periods of high water. You used HESCO barriers, which are basically canvas bags in a steel frame. You probably remember those green bags out there. Works great, and you can take them away. It's no long-term impact, so that's a good thing. Next slide, please. Again, very long and low. So Area 5. So this is kind of the south end of Monroe Bluff. Goes from Monroe Beach south further. And this is where we start to get into a lot of the armoring. And the bluff is steeper here, and we have a lot of sand starvation here. And this is everything from here south pretty much is armored. And you may not be aware of it if we jump to the next slide. That when you look at this, it looks like there's only armoring there near the blue home. There is actually a reason why that bluff stopped moving. At the very toe of that bluff, none of us knew it was there. We didn't discover it until this whole thing. That was, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of cubic yards of sand was washed away at high water, but it stopped at the toe of that bluff because there was a low sheet pile wall. It's only like 6 inches above the beach. It's very, very low, and it was just enough to hold the toe of that slope, basically the base of that slope that you see there, and that held it in place, and that's why the erosion stopped there. So this is actually technically has an armoring structure in there, even though you can't see it. The stone is what we're all used to seeing, and that's what a lot of people ask for because that's typically the most cost-effective way. Next slide. Again, a little bit wider here, and then as we go to the south, it gets narrower. Let's keep going. And so from here south, Area 6, it's characterized by it's armored everywhere. So if you jump to the next pictures, basically everything is either a mixture of stone walls, or there's stone revetments, steel sheet pile walls. There's even some steel groins. This particular home here actually has 2 or 3 structures in it. All of those things were built over time. None of that's going to go away. If Eagle had their way, if there was a way to take it away, if we could restore that drift, I'm sure these homeowners would like to take it away because providing a revetment like this in front of a home is It's at least $200,000, if not up to $1 million. It's very, very expensive. So it's not like it's a desirable thing, but Eagle allows you to do it to protect your property. So what we want to do is avoid having more of this, and we want to have as much of the soft as we can. That's what Eagle wants to do. That's best for the environment. It's best for everybody. And if we didn't have the sand being interrupted, we wouldn't need so much of this either. So let's move on to the next slides. Yeah, so there's a little bit more. That looks like it's open, but again, there's a steel wall back there. Next slide. And so forth. So having evaluated all of that, how did we come up with our recommendations? So Ally is on our team here, and my partner Jack, coastal engineers. Jack's got 50 years experience doing this. We studied all this, and there's some basic science to how we do this. There's a thing called, obviously the water levels move up and down 6 feet. All of these are the recommendations consider high and low waters. There's the waves. How big are the waves? There's a thing called wave run up. How far will the wave go up the beach? And that's a factor of how steep the beach is, which is why in Area 3 you've got a lot more run up. The flood zone is actually way, way inland. In fact, many of those homes are in the FEMA flood zone. And so we've established these recommendations based on all these different features here to come up with, say, everything behind this line is reasonably safe. Everything in front of this line, if you start to armor it, it's going to create some of these issues. So let's move on. I want to talk about the difference between structures and what is a structure versus a coastal protection system. A structure is typically, it's a home. It's not a stair. It's, a structure is a big, it's not a walkway, it's not a stair, but if it's a building, an outbuilding, a house, a thing like that. So when we talk about these recommendations, I want that to be clear. So let's jump to the next slide and we'll start to show what we recommended. So for Area 1, we're proposing a setback line. Basically, just like your regular zoning, saying, don't build in front of this line. If you build in front of this line, you can assume sooner or later you're going to have to armor. And if you have to armor, you're going to cause a situation where your neighbor has to armor, and your neighbor, and your neighbor, and your neighbor, and so forth, and that's not good. What you'll see on this photo, and it's a little bit hard to see it here, but that purple line is way out in front of the homes. We're not impacting anybody's home. If anybody needed to armor something or build something behind that line, it will not create a situation that is likely to impair anybody else's use of their property or the public trust. So it's very easy up in Area 1 because of the natural conditions. No worries there. Does that all make sense? All right, so let's jump to the next slide. Area 2, yep. So Area 2, the northern end of it is very much like Area 1, but you'll notice the purple line goes right through the condos, right there. Now, we are, of course, not going to say you take the condos out. Of course, we're not going to say that they can't protect it. So what we're saying in our recommendations is that there are no new structures should be allowed in front of this line, because once you put it out there, it's going to be at risk. The setback line itself should be reviewed every 5 years because of weather conditions and things like that. So what we're recommending, the location of that purple line should be reevaluated every 5 years or so. So a new coastal defense system, which is a distinction from a building or a structure in this case. A coastal defense system is like the stone armoring. That's typically what Eagle allows. So let's say, for example, that the folks in that condo find that that wall at some point needs to be reestablished. It's not going to last forever. We are recommending that they should be allowed to do that. We're not going to tell them they have to tear their structures out, but you need when you need to redo that, so long as it's in compliance with Eagle's requirements and the Corps of Engineers requirements, it should be allowed. And the reason that should be allowed is I promise you that Eagle is going to make them do it the smallest possible way to provide adequate protection. So there won't be any, oh, well, I had to protect my structure and I built my wall 100 feet further out to sort of collect more land. What we're saying is you have what you have. You should be allowed to protect it because Eagle already says you're allowed to protect it. But Eagle's going to limit that to only what is necessary for protection. So they couldn't say, so you can see up there where the pool is, they could reinforce what they have in front of their stone, but they couldn't push the wall out towards the lake to gather a bunch of new land. Does that make sense? Okay, next slide, please. So this one's interesting. You'll notice, again, we have similar issues with some of the condos, same exact recommendation. Can't build anything out in front of it. You can protect what you have, so long as Eagle permits it. You'll notice the purple line runs behind a bunch of homes down here at the south end. That purple line is also where the FEMA flood elevation is. So again, we're not telling them that they can't have their house there. They have to take their house out if they want to renovate their house. That's all fine. Everybody needs to understand you're at risk. You are in the flood zone, and unless Eagle allows some type of shoreline protection, you know, it shouldn't be it won't be a South Haven decision because it's in the floodplain and it's within that regulation of Eagle. So if somebody wants to rebuild their house in place, that should not be an issue. But again, you can't go ahead and start building structures way out past it. Does that make sense? Okay. Next slide, please. Over here, very similar issue with the water plant. And again, you know, a coastal protection system should be allowed in front of a structure like that, but it would be dunes. We'll talk about offshore reefs. We're actually talking about doing offshore islands for new armoring strategies. I don't think you'll need it here. You have temporary measures like the HESCOs and other things. But in these situations, what we want to focus on is what we call soft protective measures, coastal defense systems. So generally, we don't want to add anything out here. If we have to protect your water supply, there are soft ways to do it, just as you're aware. So next slide, please. Down here, again, it's very, very simple. Many, many structures out here. Those rock structures, those steel structures, they're not going to last forever. Over the next 20, 30, 50 years, many of them are going to need to be rebuilt. We think it's completely reasonable that those should be allowed to be reestablished to protect those homes. Eagle will allow it, but it has to be permitted by Eagle, and Eagle is going to make that the smallest possible thing that will actually achieve the goal. Nobody should be allowed to push out further into the public trust and sort of gain land. Does that make sense? So that's the requirement there, and the same thing for Area 6. So it's a very simple approach. Basically, we've defined a purple line that if you build in front of it, you're at risk, and you're almost certainly going to come back to it later and say, well, I built my house out here, and now I need to armor it. Well, you should not allow people to build past that line. This has been in place in St. Joe for, I think, 10 years now. It's a model plan. It's really what shoreline communities are starting to do, and it's the best way for you to say simply, fairly, and honestly. And as you can see, we're not aggressively taking anything from anybody. We're just saying if you build past this line, you're going to create a risk that's going to impact your neighbor, and we don't think that that's a good idea. So with that, I will take questions.
I have a couple.
Certainly.
The armoring and the revetment work, would you classify that as temporary rather than permanent? And let me state it differently.
Sure.
Is it a mitigating action and not a corrective action?
Good question. So typically, Eagle is going to consider a permanent solution. So what Eagle wants you to do, and it's always going to come back to Eagle. Eagle has more jurisdiction and regulation than everybody else. The Corps does too, but the Corps defers to Eagle on anything environmental. It's typically how they approach it. So I'll use good examples at record high water. There were scenarios where people wanted to armor, and Eagle very much wanted people to not armor, and what they recommended and encouraged was soft temporary strategies. So that would be the HESCO barriers, that would be simple sandbags, or we call them burritos. It's basically a giant sandbag, a big giant tube that's 4 feet around. That is the preferred measure because when the water goes back down, you cut them open, you have sand, and that's what everybody wants. If you're building stone and steel, that's a permanent measure, and Eagle's going to want it to be designed in such a way that it stays permanent because they don't want debris and rubble falling into the water. So if you currently have stone and steel, you're probably going to need to keep doing that because we're at a point now where everything is sort of stabilized up to that point, and if we tried to change it to a soft solution, it probably would not survive. Barring a new strategy that we're actually doing a study on in St. Joe right now, we're just getting started. There's a new strategy about offshore armoring, which is basically you build offshore segmented breakwater islands with the idea being as you trip the wave before it gets to your shore, and that allows us to have a softer shoreline edge. It's a strategy that's used in every other Great Lake, every other state on the Great Lakes except Michigan. And that's not because Michigan is saying it can't happen, it's because nobody's gone through the permitting process yet. So we're doing a study right now with Eagle, with the state and the county to look at that in St. Joe. So 5-10 years down the road, there might be another strategy, but at the moment, we're still developing it.
And again, I appreciate it. That sounds really good, by the way, but I asked that question because several of us did attend the LEA workshops, and basically, and Larry and those that attended the workshop with me, correct me if I'm wrong, but overall, the message that I heard is revetments don't work.
Yes, that is accurate.
And with the corrective actions that they suggested, it was a distant third. Number one was move the house.
Yep.
Number two was plant
Yes.
environmental friendly protections from it, but only as a last resort, revetment.
Exactly.
So as I look at our coastal resiliency, will we prevent any further revetments?
Yes, that's the intent of this, is that no revetments would be placed in a location where they cause that damage. So the number one reason we don't want revetments is that river of sand
Sure.
needs to constantly collect sand from the shore and move it southward. And when we put a revetment in there, or a wall, and it's particularly a steel wall, but even armored stone, it stops that, and that creates starvation downstream. So you're 100% correct.
But it does sound like we're making a policy decision to accept the current level with some level of permanency. In other words, this plan is more of a containment plan rather than a corrective action.
Yes, sir. What I think you're doing is, north of the piers, you're preventing any further new stuff. Basically, everything from Monroe Street north, you're saying no more new structures out on the water. If somebody wants to put an armoring back behind it, that's fine. It's never going to impact the water. South of there, until we have some other measure, there's really no effective way to protect those homes. Yes, we could move homes back, but most of those homes, as you know, there's nowhere for
Don't
them
have
to
the
move
land, that's
to.
correct.
So now, if 5 years down the road, we've shown that these offshore breakwaters make sense and they start to work, I can, maybe not in 5 years, maybe 10 or 15 years, I can see a long-term strategy with the state of Michigan going, it's important for us, enough for us to restore our soft shoreline, that we look at a state-sponsored strategy to do something else. Because one of our challenges is the way the bottomlands are owned in Michigan. It makes it very difficult to permit something, because these offshore breakwater systems are by their design, they're not for one home. They have to be a mile of it. And so that's a different strategy. But you're right, we're containing what we have, we're not making it any worse, and until we have a better strategy, we're going to stop the bleeding, so.
And I'm sure you understand that most of the emotion and most of the issues here are about the south side.
Yes, sir.
Because that's where the average citizen, not the homeowners, but the average citizen meets the consequences. We can't walk the beach anymore,
Exactly, yep.
which also affects our attractiveness as a tourist stop. You know, our beach, the sand might be larger because we dumped a bunch of sand,
Yep.
but you can't walk down to the power plant anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And what's important about this is when the water inevitably does go back down to record low, what we don't want is at that point to somebody say, I'm going to now build my structure out there. And the reason that Eagle would not allow that is because ordinary high water mark does not move. Ordinary high water mark is irrespective of if the water's down here or up there. That line is still there, and that's where Eagle and the Corps' jurisdiction takes effect. So even if it did go down, nobody would be allowed to do it. But it makes sense, since you as a policy in South Haven require somebody who's getting that permit to come to Plan Commission and then to you, you now have a document that's crystal clear, outlines for everybody consistently, fairly across everyone. So most communities actually don't bring the construction of a revetment through Plan Commission, and that's a little bit unique in South Haven. I think it's good, but this gives you a tool that everybody can point to and say, them's the rules. So
You probably know the history, but we were really good students. So when the first revetment request came in, as a planning commission, we refused it.
yeah,
Said, no, can't do it. Now, the city council overturned us, but, yeah, it's a touchy issue, and I'm glad to see what you're doing here. And
yeah. This is really meant to thread the needle and say, we're not going to take away what anybody has and cause somebody to lose a home or lose property value, but we're also going to make sure that it doesn't harm anybody else, because it does reduce property value, and it is an environmental harm to put more stone and more steel out there.
yeah, thank you.
I'm glad to hear you say that, not allowing additional revetment, but the language, I'm concerned, is too soft in the recommendation, because it says the coastal defense system can be built adjacent to said structure. And revetments are not allowed, are not prohibited. So revetments are still possible, and we could prohibit them. I know other jurisdictions have. I was at the Resilience Summit yesterday in Lansing. Excellent course, meeting people from Eagle. Marcy was there. And the resounding message was, you need to have a living shoreline techniques, which is not revetment of any kind. So that's where my biggest concern came in, is that I was, the recommendations were too soft to prevent revetments where they are not already occurring.
We can, yeah, I'm sorry. We can clarify that. That is absolutely our intent. We do not want any revetments. The only place we want to allow any type of revetment is to maintain only what exists today, and only within the parameters of Eagle, which will be the smallest possible additional improvement, and nothing new. So that is definitely the intent, and if we're not clear enough on that, we can reinforce that.
I think someone could easily get around.
Let's work on it then. Thank you.
Yes, so super. That's fantastic. So the other resounding message I heard, and maybe this is more relevant for rivers versus the lake, is that with the warming trend, they are looking at setting guidelines based on the 500-year floodplain versus the 100-year floodplain. And I noticed you had mentioned the 100-year floodplain. Does that change anything if, from a lake perspective, if we did a 500-year floodplain versus 100?
I think that's really more effective of why we set the 5-year recommendation, is to revisit that. Because we could go to 500-year, but what you're going to find is it's going to be more like Area 3, where it's just the line just moves more and more homes. But we're still, at the 100-year, we're still stopping before any new structures get near the water. So 500-year is just going to go behind what we've already done. We're already saying stop before then, so I don't think you need to do that here.
Okay.
But that's part of the reason to look at it every 5 years, is if there's a reason to move it with immediate information, I think that would be helpful. But
Okay.
100% agree with what you're saying.
A couple of things for the exceptions. So why did you choose 5 feet width for the stairs?
It's just a typical width, so. I mean,
Because if you're putting stairs in the dune, that seems like it's interrupting a fairly large swath. And once the dune grass is gone, that can have negative
Sure.
ripple effect on the adjoining property. So I would prefer to see something more narrow. And with regard to stairs, the recommendation was stairs could go in, I think, Area 3 and 4, but those are very flat. So that didn't seem like that would be something that would be recommended.
Yeah, again, once you're past those lines, particularly in Area 3 and 4, nobody's going to need them. So where the stairs are most likely needed are going to be 5 and 6. And again, that width is, it's a standard width people build their wires to. I'm not sure that there'd be a legal rationale to go one or the other.
So most of the reason why you're not going to see stairs or things like that more narrow than 5 feet is you start to have accessibility challenges
Yeah.
with different pieces of equipment. I mean, thinking about 5-foot walkways, obviously stairs are going to be challenging for anyone who, let's say, is in a wheelchair, but 5-foot like paths or boardwalks and
Yeah,
structures
it's
like
just
that.
kind of a standard, yeah.
Right, but a lot of this is private property, so, and I'm very cognizant of it because I have not personally witnessed it happening, but I have seen afterwards where there had to have been like a bulldozer who came down the whole bluff and the dune grass is totally gone.
Yeah. So,
And-
the reason the bulldozers can do that is because that's the only way to access it. And so that's back to getting with Eagle. And so,
Well, this is on private property that just cleared it.
yeah, well, that'd be an interesting, if it's a particular instance. Typically what's allowed, and it's in the Eagle permit about the access. You have to, in your permit, not just say what you're going to build, but how they access it and how the stone gets here and all those things. And so typically, they would have to be below OHWM. But we're all in agreement with that. I think the width of the stairs is it being private is a bit of a challenge, I think, potentially. But anyway, so I guess I'm not sure how to address that specific question. Nobody wants to mess with the dune grasses. And, oops, I'm sorry. This is Allie trying to get back to me here. There we go. So, yeah, I guess, clearly we don't want to have any more impact to those things. I'm a little reluctant to tell somebody how wide their stair can be, but 5 seemed a reasonable width.
Okay.
It could be revisited. I would defer to Plan Commission, I guess, on that. I think from a, The ideal scenario, honestly, from a recommendation is I would prefer to have an aluminum stair that's on legs that just goes right over top of things as opposed to a structure that goes through things. We had an interesting scenario. It's a real challenge. This is a funny challenge. Somebody in the equivalent of Area 1 in St. Joe, the best possible place to have your home, no need at all to have a structure, and he had a dune in front of his home, which is perfect, and he decided to blast a trench through it because he wanted to be able to get his jet skis in and out. It was easier for him. I'm like, you can go over. Blasted a hole through it, and he started to get erosion. And then he decided to call us, the people who wrote the rules, and said, I'm going to hire you to circumvent your own rules. I'm like, no, you're not. But I went out there to talk to him. He's like, well, what should I do? I said, you should put the sand back, and you should hire somebody to restore the dune grass. This is what you should do, because you've created a problem. And so those things happen. And he did go away, and nothing, it went away. But those are the kinds of things that, you can't coach that kind of silly. You're like, why did you do that? You can see the direct correlation. You cut a hole through the thing that was holding this whole thing together, and then it started to erode, and you're wondering why. And now you want me to tell you why you should be allowed to now armor this, and now you're going to make the next 20 people in a row armor it's silly. So we're trying to avoid that.
And in Area 1 at the bottom of Newcomb Beach is a huge stormwater discharge, and that beach is always, the steps are getting undermined. And I didn't see that specific issue in there to address. I didn't know if you might want to add
We
it.
might want to, I think I've actually looked at that one. That's been an issue for many years, hasn't it, Griffin?
Yes,
I think I went and looked at that one about 5 years ago.
it's always been an issue.
Yeah, it's, again, I think most of that stair would actually be behind the purple line, so you'd be able to do kind of whatever you need to do for that. And that's really the goal, is once you're behind the purple line, do what you need to do. In front of the purple line, it's going to be very, very limited to only what's absolutely critical, and that Eagle will permit. And they're not going to let you do anything more than absolutely necessary.
Okay. You had identified Lake Michigan vacation condos. It's in figure 61 and 64, pages 65 and 67 of the report, 179, 181 of the agenda packet. I think that's actually Bent Tree.
Oh, we might have the wrong name?
Well, so if you're on Google Maps,
Yep.
that pops up, but I think it's a vacation rental.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's the Bent Tree condos.
Thank you.
So you may want to.
We'll correct that. Thank you.
I'm just, for, you said construction, erection, expansion several times. What about rebuild? So if something gets destroyed, and it's in front of that line, are they going to be able to rebuild it?
The way we've written this right now, let's take Area 3. That's one of the most likely areas. I would be reluctant to tell somebody they could not rebuild their home. That's going to be, you would need to take that. It's a pretty serious policy question. So we basically said, I think we're basically silent on it. You can rebuild what you have, but we're not allowing more or recommending you allow more. And if you want to say you couldn't build it back, I think I would run that through legal. There's some issues there, I think.
We need to remember, we're not looking at an ordinance here.
No, I know.
Yeah.
This is just a report and
what
recommendations
I
from a
was-
consultant.
I think the process is going to be, we're going to take this report, you're also going to present this to council. Okay, so these recommendations, how do they potentially become an ordinance down the road?
So if I can
Right.
talk,
Well, I was just, correct, but with regard to my original comment, so it was page 69 of the report, it actually talks about shoreline armoring. So that's what, I just want to make sure that the recommendations are clear that we don't want additional armoring.
so my understanding, if I can, is talk a little bit about next steps, is this is already an initiative that the Planning Commission has been undertaking for a period of time. Going back to even before I was hired with the city, I know there was some frustration and confusion about some previous applications. There was a subcommittee created of the Planning Commission. Ultimately, we moved forward with this study and are really following the process that the city of St. Joe set out. because they really have a model statewide of how this has worked. So how I see next steps going is, assuming there is no more feedback for the report, we'll get the report finalized with Greg and his team at Edgewater, and we will close out the existing grant that we have now, because the grant that we received this time was to conduct this study. What I see happening is city staff preparing an application in the upcoming months for the next round of coastal management grants to get additional support to build on this study and actually work to prepare draft ordinance language. And that would then get brought back to you all in the future, where you all could work to review that and eventually, obviously, consider it and make a recommendation to the city council. So I don't see this being something that obviously we're going to be adopting in the next couple months. This is going to be something that we're working on kind of in the long term, but with the idea of the next time that these high water levels come up, you all have more tools in place and more tools at your disposal to be able to effectively review these applications, as opposed to the last time. I know there was a lot of feeling that you all were a little bit hamstrung.
I think that's helpful, on knowing that information.
I actually thought of one other recommendation. So you had the lines of the low water mark and then the high water mark. Is it possible to overlay those with the setback?
Yes and no, because that's a contour line, and particularly low water is constantly moving. So,
Or I guess I'm most interested in the high water line from the 2021.
well, the high water line that matters from a regulatory perspective is ordinary high water mark.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, Eagle and the Corps have a different ordinary high water mark. It's 1 foot difference. So that's really the one, irrespective of where the water actually went. And that's the tricky part, because it moves as well, which is interesting. In Wisconsin, they designate the ordinary high water mark like you do a wetland by looking at plants and things. And so you can have an ordinary high water mark that actually goes up and down in elevation, which does not make sense to me because water is level. So in Michigan, we set those as elevations. And so I think we could show it, but that's the one that really matters, because that's all I would not want to confuse somebody with a third high water mark. Let's use we typically use Eagles because that's the most restrictive.
So
Okay.
what my suggestion would be, again, if I can, Mr. Chairman, just in terms of next steps, is we don't obviously need any formal action on this report tonight, but just to highlight, the intent of the report is this technical study has been found to be a good legal basis for an eventual ordinance development. So the situation that Greg mentioned, St. Joe's ordinance has actually already been challenged in court. And one of the reasons that it held up is it had a shoreline protection study like this, providing the scientific backing for those setback lines that were established. So this was really the first step in our process to working towards ordinance development. I think the other part of this that is going to be worth noting and really important to consider is, as Greg mentioned, once we get something in place, we're also going to have to consider or continue to review it over time. So that's why with all of your work presently to review the master plan and update the master plan with a coastal resiliency lens. I know I haven't been in part of all of your meetings, but I would strongly encourage that some reference of the work that we're doing to establish a setback line and to put policies in place to provide additional shoreline protection would be highly recommended in terms of providing some additional legal justification for an eventual ordinance development.
Greg, I want to thank you and your staff for this very instructive draft. And I learned a lot, and like many of us, we've been attending these meetings for the last several years, and this kind of gives us hope that there's a direction that we can go, and you laid a good foundation for that, and I'm very thankful that you
put the time and effort into it and presented us with such a good model. Thank you.
Thank you. The credit goes to Ali, who's on the phone. She's in Mexico at the moment, so. Poor thing.
Darn.
I'd just like to second that if I could. I mean, we've seen lots of work from Edgewater over the years, and the quality of your work is apparent. I thought this was a terrific thing. Honestly, I read it a couple of times because it was so fascinating. So I'll just second what Janice had to say and compliment you and your team on the effort you put in. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
We do need to discuss this that's in front of us. If there are any questions about it, anything that seems to be missing,
I have two.
we do. And I know Clark has some.
I just
a
have,
couple.
I just have two, because the purple line was kind of our goal that we talked about years ago, of coming up with a plan for the future. Two items of the recommendation, the purple, what if we have an individual, and I think one of the lots on Avery Park is empty, and on the other side of the purple line. You know, but what would a recommendation be with that property owner? Because it may impact the value of their property if they can't put
Yeah.
a home, and there's a line of homes, and then there's just an empty lot.
Yeah, the recommendation would be don't build something west of that purple line.
Okay, and then the other one was, I think you had mentioned a couple years ago, early on, about 85 to 90% of the armored properties are armored.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned one of the issues is that armored property impacts properties on both sides. So if we do have an unarmored property saddled between two armored properties, would we allow that individual to armor theirs because they're in a predominantly armored spot and they're being impacted by their neighbors?
If there is I did not see one, I would have to check that.
Okay.
If there is one, there's a strong rationale to allow them to armor, because what Eagle's gonna look at is they don't want any more debris in the lake and any more stuff in the lake. And if there is a gap, typically what our Eagle requires is that you basically do a return back in to prevent what we call flanking. And flanking is when water gets behind that wall, and then that wall fails and it all collapses into the lake, and then a house ends up in the, and that's, so there's an environmental rationale to close that gap,
Okay.
because we don't want more things in the lake and more damage and more construction, and it can cause that. So I don't think we have one of those, and if we do, we should look at it, but that would be one of the only exceptions, and I would give it the exception based on the environmental benefit of not allowing all the other damage and having to have more bulldozers driving down the beach, frankly. So.
Thank you. That was all I had.
Clark, to build off of Clark's question, because as I remember, you could almost follow the revetment projects south. And as one person got their revetment approval, well, then we had to give the person next to him, because that's where the erosion was gonna hit then, and down, and we chased it all the way down South Beach. I don't know as if there's any land on South Beach that it doesn't have revetments anymore, but I certainly won't wanna be one of the 2 or 3 that didn't get their revetment.
And that was just little exceptions for us to think about down the road when we
Yeah.
actually create and having that input is helpful. Thank you.
I think you're at 100%.
I think we are.
Sadly, yeah. So, after 2019, if you didn't have armoring and you needed armoring, you're either armored or you're gone. So, the other thing that happens when you have that sand starvation, and this is why it's so bad, is because that sand is not on the beach. It also means the water's deeper in front of it, and deeper water means a bigger wave and more erosion. And so it's a very, very challenging that you can't, until we get back to a new strategy that moves the protection a little bit offshore, there's really no way around it, unfortunately. That's kind of where we are.
There was also the argument that it affects the riptides too.
Yeah, it can.
It has made the beach, some would argue it's made the lake more dangerous.
Yeah. Whenever, at some point in the future, if you want, we can show you what these new systems are, these offshore systems. We just built one at Illinois Beach State Park, and they're really intriguing because they allow us to very directly move sand where we want it to go using natural currents. And so in Illinois, we're actually using it to take the sand that's moving southward, and right at Illinois Dunes Beach Park, we actually return that sand and make it turn north. We make it turn 180 degrees to restore the beach. which is a really interesting strategy. And so I'm really hopeful we'll start to see that in the coming years, so.
Anyone else have questions, suggestions? Okay, I do. Number one, I've got some small insignificant things that I think will clean up your
Sure.
report a little bit. I don't want to discuss them tonight. I don't think it's worth that, but
Any
I will
comments
get
to
them in
Griffin?
writing to staff so that they can get them to you. But there is one item that I really want to point out there. In areas 1 and 2, you gave us a little formula on how you calculated where that purple line would go. I didn't see that formula in any of the other areas. Did you use a similar formula or something entirely different? And perhaps if it was something different, maybe you need a little discussion there on how you came up with the line.
Yeah, we use the same set of
The
tools
same
and
thing.
same coastal management procedures to establish that line, and it's the physics of how far the water can go.
Yeah, okay.
You will note in Area 6, the purple line is at the top of the bluff, which is a little weird. It doesn't make any sense to build structures on the side of the bluff, and so it's up there on top simply because it's so steep that the rationale at that point, it's, we're trying to prevent further, but everywhere else it ties in more closely like that.
Okay,
So
I think it
we
would
can
be
provide
better.
some more detail on it.
Yeah, to either repeat that in each area or put it up at the beginning and say it applies to all of them. Make
Certainly.
it more understandable.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, are we through with this issue? We do want to, we've given the public time to talk, haven't we? Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Ally. The brains of the outfit is right here on
By
the phone.
Mexico.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Next item is number 5, Trailside Phase 2. Kelly?
Super, okay. Matt O'Connor is with us.
Can I ask a question
This
to you, Greg, real
evening.
quick? Or just, I might have missed the public comment, but I got 2 questions for you. Is that okay or not?
We need to move
Well,
along with
come-
our agenda.
Give my card to you.
Yep, if you can ask that question later, yeah.
All right.
Fair enough.
Come on up, Matt. Matt has a request this evening for an extension of the site plan approval for Phase 2 of the Trailside development. As you may recall, at the September 2022 meeting, this commission approved a site plan for Phase 2 that included 12 townhomes, 24 total units. And in November of 2023, you all considered and ultimately granted an extension of that site plan approval for an additional 6 months. And the request at the time was due in part because of long lead times on some ductile iron pipes. So construction has not yet started, and we notified Mr. O'Connor that his 6-month extension on that site plan approval was expiring, so he is seeking a second 6-month extension tonight, and we recommend that you hear from Mr. O'Connor and discuss this request.
Okay. The reason for your additional extension?
So we're working through the brownfield plan with Griffin and the county land bank is part of the brownfield plan. We do have the materials that are all on site, you can physically see. And, yeah, it's just supply chain and things take a little bit longer right now, but yeah, we're ready to get started. It's just, it's not economically feasible without the brownfield plan in place, and that's what we're working through right now. So we're ready to build more houses there, more housing there, so that's as simple as I can put it, so.
What is the status of your brownfield
I was going to ask.
We
right
have
now?
a hearing
Is there an
on,
opportunity that you may get that done in the next 12 months, or is that way down the road?
no, I mean, we have a hearing on
Next
Monday.
6 months.
We have a hearing Monday at 4 PM, right, Griffin? Don't we have a hearing on, we're meeting with the brownfield plan or we're meeting with the brownfield authority on Monday at 4 PM?
Yes, Mr. O'Connor's brownfield application will be going before the brownfield board on Monday.
Okay. So if we approve another 6-month extension, there's a good chance that it will go forward within that time period. The project will.
I would anticipate, there's going to be a couple meetings at the Brownfield Board, and then that Brownfield Plan will ultimately go to the City Council. So we're looking at a couple months to get through the Brownfield process.
Okay.
Again, assuming Mr. O'Connor's ready to start construction once that gets approved, I see no reason why he couldn't get started in the next 6 months.
Okay. And you are ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, the material's there. I mean, that's why I bought the material. I wasn't trying to like do anything disrespectful. I just was like, well, the material's here and it's available.
I just want to make sure that we all understand where everyone stands here, so.
Yeah, no,
Commissioners, you have questions?
So what I'm hearing, Matt, is the barrier is the brownfield,
correct, yeah.
which I think it behooves us as a commission to remember that he doesn't control that. He's at the mercy of how our government works and getting that part done, so I don't see any reason why we wouldn't grant the extension. He has, in the last meetings with him, when we talked about the previous extension, we raised a few stinks, and he responded to them very well. The material's there. He's ready to go. I don't think there's a person in the city that doesn't want to see something being built pretty quick. And I would assume, as a developer, it doesn't make you any money to let vacant property sit any longer than necessary either. So, if indeed we can get the assurance that the brownfield issue will be resolved within the extension that we give them, I don't know why we wouldn't extend the site plan.
I have a question. So, how long have you been working on this brownfield? When did this come up? Did this come up before your last extension, or where in the process did this brownfield thing come up?
Well, I mean, when I bought the project, it had a brownfield plan in place, so we've been working through the amendment for the last 4 years. But it's just as the project evolves. So no, I mean, everybody's been aware that the brownfield is a big component of, or is a component of, a critical component of this project. So we've been working through it. We're working with the Van Buren County Land Bank, so that's a component, that's another government body that's involved in it. So it's not as just easy as filling out an application and getting an approval letter in the mail. So, but yes, I mean, this has always been a component of the aspect of this project.
Okay, thanks.
I'll excuse my ignorance, and I'm not sure to direct this to Griffin or perhaps Mary or Matt himself. The city took an action, I believe, a couple of meetings ago to change the status of the brownfield area, right? And what, if any, impact did this have? Is that a positive step, or is it unrelated?
That was not a brownfield plan that impacted Mr. O'Connor's property.
Okay.
There are actually 2 existing brownfield plans on Mr. O'Connor's property. He's looking to take a few different actions, terminate an existing brownfield, amend an existing brownfield, and then implement a new brownfield plan for the Phase 2 property that you all are discussing at this time. So there's several different actions that are being discussed. I know in August of 2022, the city at our cost worked with our environmental consultant to prepare a memo for Mr. O'Connor to propose a path forward, and we've been working with him since then to try to move that forward.
Thanks for clarifying.
And if I could clarify further, and Griffin, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of this is because of the length of a brownfield plan and Mr. Connor coming in as the second or third developer. And so he's trying to deal with what he got, but I think the city's trying to be a good partner with trying to maximize the availability to assist with development on the brownfield property. And that's why Griffin had talked about a termination and et cetera. So it wasn't, I don't believe it's anything because of any action or inaction of Mr. O'Connor. It's just, that's how that property has progressed or lacked progression.
Any further questions? Are we prepared for a motion?
I would make a motion to extend the site plan approval for Trailside Phase 2, New Everett Park Phase 2, an additional 6 months.
Support.
I have a question.
Yep.
So
Discussion.
the additional 6 months, of course, that is a year. And so is that a cutoff time then, after that year?
It is the existing ordinance that we have in place, and actually, if you all remember, it was recently amended to actually provide more flexibility to development teams, but it allows a maximum of a 12-month
That's what I
extension,
recall.
which is
Thank
why
you.
we were comfortable bringing a second 6-month extension back
Okay.
before you all.
Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. That was a very interesting presentation.
The next item is Blue Star Highway Service Road, site plan review.
Thank you. We have Scott Parker with us tonight. He's applied for site plan review for a service drive that will cross 2 parcels, 09279 M140 Highway and 09400 Blue Star Highway. These sound like township addresses, but they are actually in the city. They're in the B2 zoning district. The service drive will serve a commercial development that's on an adjacent lot in South Haven Charter Township. So you all are not responsible for reviewing the site plan for the structure in the township, but the city's zoning ordinance does require review of the service drive. The drive parallels the main access road and connects multiple parcels, so we do consider it a service drive. This project has been reviewed by the city's engineer. It has been found to be compliant with the standards in the zoning ordinance, and should you all approve the plan, we would be looking to ensure that the ingress and egress easement is recorded and extended through both parcels, and that it's wide enough to ensure the required snow removal area, and the property owners will need to enter into a maintenance agreement to be approved by the city attorney. And these items were both noted in the engineer's review. So we've got the applicant and looks like engineer here that are available to speak about the project and answer any questions that you may have.
Hello.
Could you state your name, please, for
I'm
the
sorry.
record?
Scott Parker.
Okay.
Yep, that property is 09400 Blue Star Highway, and I purchased that property about 2.5 years ago. It's the old Moret property. I don't know if anybody knows that. Some of you probably know that property better than I do. But yeah, I wish I had something a little bit more exciting to talk about today other than a service drive. But like Kelly mentioned, the service drive is intended to go from M140 crossing through the parcel at 09400 Blue Star, and then servicing the new construction that we have in the township at 09287 Blue Star.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for clarification on what's before us?
I guess since that drive exists today, and I drove through your parking lot, by the way, your building looks very nice, nicely striped and all that. But I wondered, and I guess the county and/or MDOT would have objected. That seems fairly close to a major intersection of 140 and Blue Star, but not a concern to the county or MDOT apparently.
No, we got the permits last year from MDOT, and they responded to our requests. And you know, the drive itself, we're calling it a service drive here, but it's going past 09400, which right now is just a vacant building. Could be developed down the road perhaps. But that 09400 actually has frontage on Blue Star. So it could get its own curb cut on Blue Star. And then the primary purpose for the drive is to service the new building that's being built in the township. That also has its own drive onto Blue Star. So when we did the traffic studies, Evermarsh suggested that, you know, only a third of the expected traffic into that site would actually use the service drive. The majority would still be on Blue Star. So I think with that information, MDOT said, well, you know, everything the way it is acceptable in terms of just using the existing curb cut. Because there really was a driveway there already.
Right.
And so we improved that driveway. Actually, I think that driveway's been there for decades. I found an aerial photo from, I think, 2006 or something, and it shows the drive almost exactly where our intended drive is today, back then.
It looks like you could be putting asphalt down there tomorrow practically, huh?
Well, we had asphalt done around the building
Right.
Last week, and they stopped because of this action here. So, yeah, they're ready to go. The road was constructed.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, the road was constructed 6 months ago, actually. So it's pretty well ready to go. Yeah.
Mary?
Thank you. So it appears that everything's in compliant with the businesses that are there now, but you have the other lot where there can be construction. Would that change the requirements that are in this package for that service road if there's more buildings?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this road is intended to service just really two parcels. The one at 09400, which is in the city, then the other one that's in the township. So there's really just one parcel. I think that probably, we would probably talk about it again if there's potential development on that site. I'm sure then we would talk about it. But the road itself is built to conform to the ordinance.
And that's why I wasn't sure if the requirements, you actually answered the question in answering it. I wasn't sure if it would have to come back if there was more construction, and you already had commented that you might have to, so.
Yeah,
that-
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, if there was proposed development on the one parcel that it services now that's in the city, we would definitely be back here.
And Kelly, I think this would be a question for you. It says the applicant has substantially satisfied, and I interpreted that as meaning with the recommendations in the package. If those are recommended, then it has been
Correct.
satisfied.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or a motion?
How about a comment? Is it possible to put page 17 up on the screen?
17.
I think
It's got the
7
recommendations.
The staff
Oh,
recommendations, just to have them up on the
Sure.
screen.
Yes.
Thank you. I already did the last one. I was going to spread the love around if someone else wanted to make a recommendation. All right, I make a recommendation to approve the site plan for 09400 Blue Star Highway. And that recommendation to include staff recommendations 1 through 6 included in our packet on page 17.
Is there a second?
Support?
I would amend, I think 6, I would amend striking 6, because that's any other condition we might feel necessary, and we didn't add any other condition.
Yes.
Yeah, it might be easier if I just say recommendations 1 through 5,
Support.
then we don't have to do a second one.
So the motion now reads to approve with recommendations 1 through 5. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes?
Opposed, no. The motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll expect to see asphalt tomorrow. No, it's
Well,
going to rain tomorrow. It'll cool it too fast. Next item on our agenda is 278 Dykeman Avenue, Captain Lewis Seawall.
Yes. Captain Luz has applied for a seawall, to replace the seawall and rebuild the waterfront deck at the property located at 278 Dykeman in the city's B3 zoning district. The new wall will be approximately 45 linear feet of interlocking steel that will be placed behind existing pilings. In order to access the seawall, the existing docks and a 38-foot by 18-foot waterfront deck will need to be removed and replaced. There is a portion of the deck that encroaches on the neighboring property to the south, which is now owned by the Michigan Maritime Museum, as well as a portion that encroaches on some municipal right-of-way to the north. There are recorded easements that permit the encroachment on the museum property, and the city is working with the property owner to obtain a license agreement for the encroachment on the city right-of-way. And this encroachment can be addressed as an approval condition as well, should you choose to approve this site plan. The Harbor Commission reviewed the application at their regular March meeting and recommended approval. They noted that the project does extend past the city harbor lines, but not farther than the existing structure, and the applicant has already obtained Eagle and Army Corps permits for this project. Corey Talcott is the owner of Captain Luz. He's not able to be here tonight, but we do have his attorney here to represent him, and he may not be able to answer all of your questions, but he will certainly do his best.
My name is Owen Ramey. I'm with the firm Lewis, Reed and Allen in Kalamazoo, and Kelly said everything that I had to say.
She's good, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions?
No, the only question I had has been confirmed, that the decking, here we go, that the current deck will be removed and replaced in the exact same location, so it will be the same footprint. There won't be any change. And one thing I did read is that it would not start until off-peak season and anticipated in October.
I've been working with Mr. Talcott over this and some other potential projects for a few months now. I believe his most recent plans were he's hoping to do construction in in October. So obviously, well, maybe not obviously. I don't know if many of you noticed, but Captain Luz opened for the season last weekend.
Right.
So yes, I believe it's very intentional that they're gonna get through their season and try to get everything in place, all their approvals in place, so they can do construction at the end of the season.
Thank you.
And my only comment would be when someone makes the recommendation to look at number 4, because we may not need that one.
Any other questions or a motion?
I don't remember what number 4 was supposed to be.
Yeah, so I will move to approve the site plan for 278 Dykeman Avenue. Sorry, I'm flipping between a couple pages.
Page 57.
There we go. With the staff recommendations, number 1 through 3 for approval. I think I already said that, but.
Second.
Support, yeah.
Motion made and seconded to approve with recommendations. Any further discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, no. The motion carries. You can tell your client that he's ready to go as soon as the season allows. And you've done your job well.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to keep your mouth shut. Thank you very much for all your help.
Waiting till after the season is a bonus for us.
Attorney said that.
That concludes, well, we do have one more opportunity for the public to comment, but they've all left us, so no more public comments.
Good luck.
Commission members and staff comments. Let's start down here at this end. Sherman.
Last meeting, Eddie made a comment that I reflected on after the meeting, and basically, as one of the new members, or junior members, or whatever we are, Mary, I'm not sure that you count because you've been doing so many other things. But it's such a learning curve, and to have the experience and expertise of so many of you who have been serving for so long and know so much, just recognize and appreciate all your expertise and all you bring to this table, and we'll keep on this learning curve, right, Eddie?
Amen.
No, first of all, I want to say things about, my daughter was in Millwood yesterday, or the other day, with all of those lovely tornadoes, and so my heart goes out to everybody that was in Portage, because it was, she lives less than a mile from the FedEx facility, so they were all around her house, and she got some quality time in the basement with the dog, but that we had no damage, she had nothing, and everybody's safe, but that wasn't so much for everybody in Portage, so my heart goes out to them.
I'm just continuing to listen and learn. Thank you.
Yep, a couple things really quick. Thank you, Kelly, for putting that up on the screen. I'm wondering if, as a secondary bonus, we do something to flip the switch. For those at home can see the recommendations. Is that possible, that what we put up on the screen shows up at home? Just as a, we're putting that up there, and that was a good point, a little helpful. Everything is public, but that might be just the one last thing to flip that switch for just a minute or two while we make that motion. And then people can see at home if they didn't have the opportunity to pull up our document. I had that. This is potentially our last meeting with Mike. So I want to thank you for all of your service to both planning and to the city of South Haven, and also for the extra efforts you did in training outside of this venue. That was definitely appreciated. And again, a shout out to staff for all the work that they have done for Trailside, trying to assist in that project, and I think going above and beyond. And I'm glad we've given him one last 6 months, so we'll just see. The ball is 100% in his court now. That's it.
Janice?
Oh, yes. I was very pleased with the shoreline protection study that was presented to us today. And I'm hoping that we don't let it sit on any burner, because I think it's really important that we move forward with the recommendations. And so as the committee will be reviewing it, and then we hopefully will get this additional grant that'll help us, develop some of our ordinances, and keeping in mind our master plan where we can incorporate it as we're discussing it. I hope that all of those things will come together rather quickly rather than lingering for years. I also wanted to ask about the status of the building next to the rock shop that was supposed to have started by now, and I haven't heard anything of the delay.
I was just going to share, I know that they allowed the neighboring property owners over the past several months to perform some maintenance on their buildings, which is a common practice in zero lot line development, is before you start, you give the opportunity to your neighbors. But on that note, we have not heard any updates. They have not pulled permits to date. The last I checked, you all granted them an extension that ended some point in May and then resumes for a few more months in the fall. So I know that as city staff, we're still hopeful that they're going to move forward with that project, but we have not heard much from that development team recently.
Thank you. And I also want to say, by Mike no longer being on the Planning Commission, we are losing a strong advocate for the citizens in our community. I've never heard anyone who always brought our neighborhoods, our citizens, our community to the forefront, as Mike has in all of our discussions. And I think that we want to thank you for that. And we hope you continue to be a voice
I
for
will,
the citizens.
at 5 minutes of time.
Yeah. But thank you.
Mary?
I also want to echo the thanks to Mike for all his years of service and bringing forward concerns of the residents, and looking forward to continuing working with him. For the coastal resilience, as I mentioned yesterday, I spent the day in Lansing, and it was really excellent. And I was so nice to see familiar faces like our planner and Darcy. And I do feel that we are going to be taking these things forward. They are not going to be collecting dust. I came back with some very good publications. If the other people on the coastal committee would like to review them. And, will we be setting up a time to go over the plan? And is the next step for the shoreline armoring subcommittee? Do you know?
Yeah, the anticipated next steps are we're going to finalize the report. Edgewater's going to finalize the report and submit it to us. We'll then, city staff will then complete wrap-up services for the grant that we've received and pursue a future grant to work on ordinance language. At that time, I would anticipate we can work with the subcommittee or however the Planning Commission would like to go. But at this point in time, there's no real work or action needed from the Planning Commission or the subcommittee until we begin working on ordinance language.
Okay. And then is it going to be the next Planning Commission meeting where we'll have the master plan or recodification coming before us for discussion?
Yes, I anticipate both of those items on a June workshop agenda.
And will we be getting them more than just the week before? Because that is a substantial amount of work.
A lot of that depends on when we get materials from the consultants. And I can certainly ask for the materials with a little more lead time so that we can try to give additional lead time to you all. We'll see what we get back.
Okay, yeah, I would, especially for the recodification, and I remember Chairman Stegman had commented about for the recodification, having it in manageable size pieces to go through, because it's 250 pages?
It is a lengthy
And
document.
that's a bit much to go through at one setting, especially with the master plan update. I guess one thing we could start working on for that is we were provided the coastal language at a previous Planning Commission meeting, and it was pretty large. We might want to consider going through that, or will a revised draft be presented to us?
Yes, I would not advise going through that chapter because I will have a substantially reduced chapter.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. Kelly, comments?
Mike?
No.
Oh,
Not recognizing
okay.
Mike yet.
All right.
I want
Mike.
Kelly first.
I'm sorry. Well, thank you, Mike, for your service to this board and to the community. And I know that we will not have heard the last from you. Thank you, Mary, for going to that training. We are lucky to have the Michigan Association of Planning and MSU Extension in our area. They do offer a variety of workshops in person and through Zoom that are really high quality. And so if you haven't had a chance to participate, I really encourage you to take advantage of that. They're really, really great resources. Next month, I already mentioned, I anticipate bringing forth the master plan and zoning materials to all of you. And I wanted to say an additional thank you to all of you for being willing to move this meeting to the second week of the month. That allowed me to attend the high school and middle school band concert last week. Thank you, thank you. It was really wonderful. I appreciate being able to participate in my family activities.
Griffin, comments?
I don't have any comments. It was good to see everyone. I know it's been a while since I've been here, so nice to see everybody.
Now, Michael, it's your turn.
Wonderful. Well, I truly am grateful and honored to have been able to serve. And I'm sure you all know this. I'm not leaving because I'm tired of you. I have a couple beliefs that led me to this decision. One, I think 6 years is long enough on the Planning Commission. I think we need some fresh ideas and fresh faces. Kelly knows I wished that we had more younger people apply for positions. None did. But that was my hope. I would be replaced by a young family member, a young person with a family, but didn't happen that way. I do want to say that, just very quickly here, I was raised with the responsibility to serve, and I couldn't always do that because of my job. I was never in town, so I couldn't really serve my city when I was in Portugal or whatever. But my mother, I lost my mother last week, 98 years old. She finally decided that was enough life. But up to her end days, she was the elected person at her senior living center to interact with management. So it was kind of neat to see my mom up there. She was probably the longest serving president of the PTA in Toledo, Ohio. And she taught us that you had to serve. My dad was no different. My dad was on many city commissions in the city of Toledo. My dad's proudest achievement was he authored the 30 and out clause for auto workers. Some of you are old enough to remember that you weren't allowed to retire from any place until you were 70 years old, even if you had 70 years of service. So he was real proud of that. My dad did run for the mayor of Toledo and lost by less than 20 votes, which I thought was pretty cool as well. That legacy will not be continued, by the way.
Oh,
I just want to. But I do want to call out a couple people, and I have expressed my thanks. I hope each of you have felt my gratitude to each of you. I think we've worked very well together. We've done contentious issues. But I think you could always count on this body getting their work done, and I'm really proud of that. I do want you to pass along my thanks to Brian. I never thought I'd sit in this chair until Mr. Doucette said, yes, you will. Matter of fact, you have to. I go, no, I don't, Brian. He goes, yes, you do. If you're going to be sitting in my office complaining about things, then you got to serve on a commission. I said, but I'll never get on it, Brian. He goes, yes, you will. So anyways, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Look what you did to me. I'm going to miss a couple things. I'm going to miss Kelly's calls. You can still call me on Wednesday if you'd like, just to say hello, because that was pretty cool. I also want to suggest, and Eddie, if you've not just suggested an idea, that Citizen Planner program is worth its weight in gold. Bob, I know you had that same experience. It's absolutely wonderful. And you meet some really cool people as well. The last thing is one of my favorite things I took away from the Citizen Planners, the quote I use when I talk to young people about serving in their community. And that you make that decision because the quote was, citizens serve their city to ensure that the city serves their citizens. So that's what we do. So thank you all. You'll see me. I promise not to take the full 5 minutes, but I'll be weighing in on some issues now and then.
I got a question for you, Mike.
Sure.
How'd you like to come restart a nuclear power plant? You've been there before.
I think I still have my badge.
Thank you, Mike. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, that's Mike's job.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
There you go.
All in favor say yes.
Yes.
No?